So, the story begins in the estate of the main character, a snob, a duke who is looking for a tutor for his nephew. Our heroine is assessed by a butler who has clearly escaped from Black Butler, as he bears a striking resemblance to him. And here is our main heroine. She works as a teacher in a rural village. She left her job to teach the duke's nephew. The butler rereads the letter of recommendation once again, looking for any kind of clue to prevent him from hiring the heroine. Our heroine hides from him the fact that she is another reincarnated person, and she is here to take revenge on the Duke for her past life. We are told that the heroine's family, Agnes May Graham, was accused of fraud and quickly went bankrupt. Agnes was unable to get married, but she found solace in the work of a village teacher, a tutor. As I understand her, she is a teacher herself. Time passed. Agnes did not think about marriage. Her family did not bother her, and she devoted all her time to her children, educating them. Agnes taught all kinds of children, from difficult to obedient. She saw both poor students and excellent students, but she loved them all. Before Agnes knew it, she had missed the age that was favorable for marriage and was unable to get married, but she already had children. So she decided to enjoy life in the house of the Marquis Reynold, who, despite being 21 years old, already had twins. Reynold himself was a hopeless person. He himself needed a teacher. He did not know what to do. Constant fights and debauchery. For example, his son treats Agnes well, and he decided to give our heroine a gift, for which he asks her to stop. Agnes stops and asks the children what they want from her. The children suggest that she look at the flowers. She is given a bunch of flowers, which include peonies, daisies, and peas. Agnes can't believe that these flowers are for her. She is glad that the students appreciate her and give her flowers. But the idyll didn't last long. 3 years later, their father was accused of treason, and a bunch of marauders came to kill him. Agnes hides with her children behind a nearby house, afraid that she and her children will be found and killed, just like Marquis Reynold. A typical classic scene ensues. Agnes asks the children to run the other way as the guards pass by. The children are afraid to look at their peaceful village, and they ask if Agnes can go with them. They are worried about the teacher. Agnes asks them to run and not listen to the sounds of the carnage. She asks them to run as far as possible and not look back. All Agnes can do in this situation is to hug them and calm them down, because the poor children are scared. Agnes gently pushes the children away from her. They cry. They understand that they will never again see their kind teacher and their slob father. Agnes is grabbed by some guard who says that she is a traitor to her homeland and that she kept the Marquis, a traitor, in her custody. Someone approaches Agnes, and it turns out to be our main character, with whom she will also have an affair in the future, which is stupid. Agnes looks at the man who came to kill her, the man who is ready to kill the twins. In front of her is a typical handsome man, a man with dark hair, all in black, a real prince on a white horse. The man looks at her with his ice blue eyes, his dark short hair blowing in the wind, and he is thirsty for blood. Agnes is shocked. In front of her is the Duke of Battenberg, the ruler of the lands. He is the uncle of the Marquis, the father of the twins. The Marquis is rudely brought to him. The Marquis resists, begs his uncle to save him from this fate, and says that he knows nothing. The Marquis begs the Duke of Battenberg for mercy. He tells him that he is the Duke's only nephew, and that he must be believed. But the Duke tells him in a cold voice that his sister died, without seeing the shame of her brother, the Marquis. The Duke does not listen to his nephew's pleas for his life, but he is adamant he wants to save the country and raises his sword. Agnes closes her eyes. She doesn't want to see blood. She hears the ringing of the sword, the splashing of blood. A minute later, Agnes sees the Marquis's body fall to the ground with a splash, blood oozing from the fatal wound. The Marquis is dead. Agnes is horrified by the cold-bloodedness of the Duke of Battenberg, who calmly took the life of the Marquis, whom he raised with his own hands. The Duke approaches our heroine. He gets closer and closer. He asks her if she is ready to admit that she helped. A cold blade is pressed to her throat, and Agnes becomes afraid when she sees his impassive face in front of her. The Duke reports that the Marquis's children may have hidden, but it won't be difficult to track them down and burn the village to the ground. The cold blade is getting closer and closer. Agnes begs the gloomy Duke to spare the Marquis's children, because they are not guilty of anything. But our heroine behaves like a typical movie heroine. She is in this situation because of the Marquis, and she is also worried about the children. The girl recalls how she spent time with the twins, lying with them in bed. She remembers how she read with them, and how the children also learned to understand the world through books. She remembers how children gave her flowers, how happy they were that the girl accepted their gift. Agnes was the only one who could protect the children from what happened, but now she is gone. The Duke asks Agnes where the children are, and she replies that he will not be able to find them, that they are already far, far away. The Duke swings his heavy sword, not satisfied with the answer Agnes gave him. Agnes decides that if she were given a new life, she would start by raising the Duke. Agnes's last thoughts were about re-educating the Marquis and preventing the war from breaking out, that she would give him an education. The first thing the girl saw was a cute teapot from the cartoon Beauty and the Beast, which was so inviting. The old butler offers the girl some tea, and she cannot refuse Richard's tea. Agnes thanks our heroes for giving her tea. She is glad that she can drink aromatic tea, Richard. After her death, the girl returned to her 22 years ago, 14 years ago. This is her chance to change everything. But our heroine cannot pretend that she does not know those children, and she knows that the Marquis is now a child and is being raised. The old butler asks our heroine if she liked the English tea, and she can't just say no. Agnes tells the butler that the tea is delicious, and her thoughts are on re-educating the Duke and his nephew. She says that Duke Reynold was afraid of her, as he was in for an unpleasant surprise in the form of a girl. We are told that the Marquis's name was Timothy, like Timothy Daltant, an actor, and he is now 7 years old. His parents died in a fire accident. Agnes believes that she can handle it by re-educating the Marquis. He will definitely be a good boy, and she will not allow war. The butler points to the letter and tells her that her previous employers are asking the girl to return. Agnes laughingly declares that she will not come to her senses, and she wants to educate the fidgety Marquis. The butler asks our heroine what the children of the previous family were like, and Agnes tells him the whole truth. She remembers them saying that the children did not want their kind teacher to go to another house and leave them. The butler tells her that otherwise he would not have offered her a job. Agnes tells the butler that she knows that Timothy lost his parents and was taken in by the kind Duke. The butler tells her that he did not tell everything in the advertisement about the teacher. Before her, there was a teacher with 15 years of experience who taught children and took Timothy seriously. But even such a teacher of the year could not cope with Timothy's dirty tricks and his character. Timothy won their confrontation, and the teacher quit after less than a year of work. The butler reports that the teacher left the house in tears. He informs our heroine that she will not only have to teach Timothy, but also live in the estate. But Agnes is determined to take revenge on the Duke, and she decides to raise Timothy properly. The butler tries with all his might to dissuade our heroine from this decision, but she doesn't want to listen. Agnes believes that her life is not easy, and she is ready to survive here, even without work experience. There is a pause between her and the butler, and he remains silent. He has never seen people so stubborn in their search for work. The butler asks Agnes not to blame him. He believes that our heroine will not last here even a day. He wants to finish the business as soon as possible. Agnes is optimistic that he has hired her and is offering him a rest and to show her the house. The butler realizes that Agnes is determined and decides to show her the room where she will stay. He leads the heroine through deserted corridors and confesses to her that his name is Carlo Vishov. In short, Papa Carlo. Our Papa Carlo informs the heroine that the Duke has gone away on business and will return soon, but when is unknown. She also informs Agnes that Timothy will be trained even without the Duke. Agnes looks around the palace and is amazed at how everything is tidied up here. We are told about Ethan Henry Battenberg, one of the heirs to the lands and the closest supporter of the Crown Prince. Ethan is a master manipulator and a dark character, best not to mess with, but Agnes is a fool for falling in love with him later. The butler sees that Agnes is not very happy with her job, and she has not yet fallen in love with our main character. Agnes assures the butler that she can handle the job, that she can teach Timothy manners. Agnes assures the butler that she will take care of Timothy. Agnes and the butler hear the eerie scream of a maid begging Timothy not to do something. Timothy shows the terrified maid a long, wriggling caterpillar, a centipede. Noticing our heroes, Timothy falls behind the maid and turns his gaze to them. Timothée Chalamet is a blonde boy with green eyes who looks exactly like Oz Vesalius from Pandora Hearts. Agnes is ready to raise Timothy and make a man out of him. The butler is shocked. He did not know that Agnes was ready. The butler asks her in surprise if she is really ready to work with the fidgety Timothy, but she has already agreed. The butler is afraid that Agnes will also run away, like the previous teacher candidates. Agnes tells the butler not to worry, as she is a master of her craft. Agnes heroically walks towards Timothy. Epic music plays. She is ready to tame Timothy. The butler is simply over the moon. A hero has been found who can tame the fidgety Timothy. Timothy Evan Reynolds is a real fidget. He has already driven a bunch of teachers to fits. Timothy watches with pleasure as Agnes approaches him. He is ready to drive her to dismissal too. Agnes asks herself to calm down. He will cope with this fidget. Timothy calls Agnes ugly and asks the butler to throw the girl out. Agnes asks Timothy not to say that, and she thinks he's quite nice. She says that she will call him Timothy, not young master. Timothy is outraged. He doesn't like Agnes. He asks the butler to remove the girl from his sight. Timothy thinks that Agnes is ruining all the fun he was looking forward to. Agnes realizes that Timothy is torturing everyone with the help of insects that are feared. Agnes scolds Timothy sternly, reminding him that it is wrong to bully people. Agnes commands Timothy to apologize to the maid, but he clearly doesn't want to. Timothy declares that he will apologize to the maid in his own way. Agnes looms over Timothy, declaring that he must apologize immediately. Timothy wonders, who should he apologize to if not her? Agnes tries to reach the boy. She reminds him that he shouldn't behave like that and scare everyone with insects. Timothy is outraged that he did something wrong, that some teacher is scolding him. Timothy threatens the maid to make her say that he did nothing wrong, and she meekly apologizes. Timothy cheerfully and proudly asks Agnes who he should apologize to, if not her. Agnes reminds him that this is not right, that Timothy is behaving inappropriately. Timothy arrogantly notes that he will not apologize, since he is an aristocrat and has a higher status than her. He rudely points out to the heroine that she should know her place among the servants. Timothy asks our heroine if she has realized that she is a nobody and means nothing to him. Agnes is angry, but she understands that Timothy's re-education will be even more enjoyable. Agnes mentions that he does have a high status, but she is no slouch either. Timothy's title is equal to that of a duke, so no one in the estate has the right to punish him. Timothy yells that Agnes irritates him. She just drives him crazy. He speaks rudely to the maid. She looks at the young master with fear. She is very scared. Timothy orders the frightened maid to pick up the slippery, sticky centipede and come with him. Agnes realizes that Timothy is simply impossible and picks up the wriggling, hairy, soft centipede. Our heroine knows that the maid is afraid of insects and took matters into her own hands, which frightens Timothy. Timothy asks her in surprise how she could even take this nasty thing into her hands. In fact, he himself is a coward. Timothy is puzzled how Agnes was able to calmly pick up the moving caterpillar. Agnes knows that she can handle this fidget, and Timothy won't be able to do anything. Agnes shyly asks Timothy if he is ready to see the caterpillar in his cozy bed, as they are heading to the bedroom. The scene reminds the boy of a horror film. Agnes, with a centipede in her hand, asks in a creepy voice to take her away. The boy himself is scared to death, and he asks Agnes not to approach him with the centipede in her hands. Timothy punches Agnes in the knee and demands that she leave the castle immediately. Agnes winces in pain. Timothy hit the target. Timothy laughs at Agnes, who is bent over in pain. He is glad that she is not feeling well. Timothy stomps his feet and demands that Agnes get out of his house. Agnes understands that she shouldn't be angry with the child. Timothy orders Agnes to get out of the house with the centipede. Agnes decides that there are a few things she can teach Timothy before their first lesson. He tramples the centipede and takes off his shoe, but Agnes makes him put on the shoe with the insect on the sole. Agnes, like a movie heroine, demands that Timothy put on his shoes, but he, looking at the centipede, is simply horrified. The sight of a crushed, slimy, long and smelly centipede horrifies Timothy. Timothy gets scared. He can't stand any insects, and then he hears Agnes's creepy voice ordering him to put on his shoes. Timothy runs away from Agnes in panic, and she, looking like an evil witch, runs after the boy. Agnes waves her shoe and tells him she will help him put it on, but Timothy is terrified of the centipede on the sole. So they end up on the roof of a house, where Timothy is breathing heavily and asking Agnes to leave him alone. Agnes, covered in mud, insists that Timothy put on shoes, even though he has a centipede on the sole. They ran out onto the wide roof of the servant's house and were about to fall down. Timothy shouts that he will fire Agnes, but she does not listen to him. She is ready to forcefully put Timothy's shoes on him. Timothy begins to stomp on the roof in anger, causing it to crack under him, which is life-threatening. Agnes begs Timothy to move away from the roof, but he doesn't want to listen to the ugly woman. Timothy stamps his feet in anger, and Agnes doesn't know what she can do with such a fidget. Timothy angrily shouts at her that she has no right to teach him, because she is nobody to him. Agnes knows Timothy isn't that mean, but she doesn't like the way he yells at her. Agnes is perplexed. How can one hate so much a man who simply entered the estate? Agnes suggests that Timothy go down carefully. Timothy keeps stomping. He doesn't want to go down, even if he dies. Timothy made a hole in the roof and his feet slid down. Agnes runs up to him screaming. Agnes manages to grab Timothy's hand and squeezes his palm tightly in hers. But Timothy suddenly pushes Agnes down from the roof, and she falls, tumbling down. Timothy lands on the roof nearby, and he breathes a sigh of relief. Suddenly, Timothy is horrified by what he did to Agnes. Agnes is glad she survived such a huge fall from the roof. Agnes fell into the stable, where she landed on soft cushions of hay. Agnes is glad that Timothy didn't fall, and she survived. Suddenly, it dawns on her that she has fallen into stinking manure. She knows that Timothy is angry at everyone because he lost his parents and no one supported him. Agnes knows she's here for a reason, but her first day on the job is a failure. A black horse approaches Agnes, and she is frightened when she hears a still, quiet, low, pleasant voice. Agnes realizes with horror who this velvety voice belongs to. Before her is the Duke of Battenberg, in riding habit, who tells her to leave the place for his horse, Kishu. Agnes lost all her resolve when she saw the Duke who had killed her in her previous life. The Duke sharply orders her to get out of here because she is getting in the way of his horse. Agnes decides to pluck up her courage and challenge the arrogant Duke. Agnes reminds Ethan that if someone falls, you should help them, not be rude. She asks for help, holding out her horse manure-stained hand to Ethan. She is surprised when Ethan states that he doesn't have to help her up. Agnes is outraged. How can one not help a man who fell from a roof? She notices that the manure is dirty, and she is too, covered in it from head to toe. Agnes asks the Duke if he doesn't want to help her because of the dirt. Agnes reminds him that Ethan doesn't need a reason to help anyone. Ethan notices that the mysterious stranger acts as if she knows him. Agnes continues to scold Ethan for being such a rude person, for not wanting to help her. She also reproaches him for being unable to take care of his nephew, who lost his parents. Agnes looks the Duke in the eye bravely, reminding him that if he continues to treat her like this, nothing good will come of it. She tells him that she will not allow it to come to that. Ethan asks our heroine who she is, and Timothy is worried that she is dead. The butler and Timothy burst into the stable and ask if she is okay. The butler suddenly realized something, and his gaze stopped on her face. He sees the Duke and shows his respect to him. Timothy is worried about his uncle. He didn't want to hurt Agnes. Ethan notices him, and his face changes to a stern expression. He sternly asks Timothy if he would like to greet him. Agnes realizes that all is not well at Timothy's house. Agnes suddenly grabs the Duke's hand, and Timothy is frightened by the butler. Agnes introduces herself by name and asks the Duke to see her. Agnes insists that the Duke introduce himself to her by name. He also introduces himself by name and asks what's wrong. She says that she recently moved into his estate. The Duke coldly declares that there is no point in Agnes going anywhere. Let her stay and live. He leaves Agnes and everyone else, and it's immediately clear that he's not interested in anything. Agnes bravely declares that she will stay in this house and look at his face later, when she has been here longer. Timothy and the butler are shocked by her, but Agnes is not going to give up. Agnes falls to her knees, and it is immediately obvious that she has become worse. Timothy is worried about her. Is Agnes injured or something like that? Agnes is glad that Timothy is worried about her, but he shouts that everything is wrong. Afterwards, she lies on the bed and thinks about whether everything is okay. Unfortunately, this house has a terrible uncle and an equally terrible nephew. Agnes sincerely believes that Timothy can change, but she is not sure about the Duke. Agnes sighs heavily. It was just a nightmare first day at work. We are shown the Duke of Battenberg's estate. It is tall and white, like a prison. Timothy screams that you can't draw on his face while he's sleeping. Agnes tells him that Timothy looks like a cute teddy bear, but she wanted to do better. Agnes is happy. She believes that she did not harm a single frog. Timothy is furious. Timothy screams about what kind of frogs there could be. He just doesn't understand her weird humor. Timothy believes that he would not have died, and neither would the frogs to whom he was compared. Agnes thinks he has a lot to learn. Timothy believes that he doesn't have to explain anything to her. Timothy states that people are more needed than some frogs. Agnes says that she is older than the boy and stronger than him. Timothy again shouts about how he is older than our heroine in status, but she does not listen to him. Timothy is surprised by what Agnes says about him. Agnes asks Timothy to think about how he behaves. Timothy states that she is indeed strange. Timothy scolds Agnes for being too strict and picking on him for everything. Agnes tries to convince Timothy that he should study and not run after frogs. Agnes kindly tells him that she wants to understand Timothy and speaks his language. Timothy is puzzled. Why does Agnes repeat everything in the same language? Agnes tries to make Timothy look uneducated, but it doesn't work. She tells Timothy that it's okay if he doesn't know the word nonsense. Timothy yells at her that she clearly wants to make him look like a fool. However, Timothy writes the word nonsense, and he shows that he is educated. He proudly declares to our heroine that he is educated and does not need a teacher. The girl tells him that he has very neat handwriting, and she will try to teach him something new. Timothy proudly asks her if she even knows who she's talking to. Agnes understands with a smile that a child is a child. Timothy looks at Agnes with displeasure. She does not notice his efforts. However, Agnes is pleased with Timothy, and she smiles at him. Although Timothy doesn't say anything, Agnes is happy with his success. Agnes asks Timothy to study, but Timothy shows no enthusiasm to study. 3 hours pass. The clock already announces that it is noon. Agnes asks Timothy to have a snack and waits for him when the boy finishes. Timothy grumbles discontentedly, "Well, how much longer can we do this?" Agnes teases Timothy, calling him a coward. Agnes tells him that if he wants, he can run further. But then, Agnes is clearly preparing something for Timothy, who looks confused. She pats Timothy on the head, and he doesn't know what to say. Agnes reminds him that if Timothy is not there by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, she will go and catch him. Timothy doesn't like that our heroine talks like that, and he runs away. She realizes that she is becoming more and more attached to the boy. At least he is. Agnes is in a hurry. She tenses up and is ready to move on. She doesn't have much time left before she can find out everything. Timothy is the Duke's nephew and hates arithmetic and bugs. He's actually easy to hurt. He's not like everyone thinks. Fifth, he just looks at the person with his lips pressed tightly together. The heroine asks the servant when the Duke will arrive. The servant greets her in a not very kind way, as he does not want to open the door. Agnes bravely declares that she will lie on the floor. The servant remarks that lying on the floor is not proper for a lady. He asks Agnes to get up when she is stretched out on the floor, and does not want to get up. The butler tries to get rid of the girl, but he doesn't succeed. The girl remarks that she wants to help, but the servant declares that the Duke does not like noise. Agnes doesn't think it will be any better if she gets scolded. Agnes demands that he open the door quickly. Johann sinks to the floor and wearily informs her that he will not do anything. Johann is amazed that Agnes lasted here for more than a day. Agnes abruptly declares that she is entering, and she does not listen to Johann. Johann is horrified by the heroine's manners. He doesn't know what else to call her behavior. Fearlessness or cheerfulness. Agnes ends up in Ethan's room, who tells her that he doesn't have to report on his behavior every day. Agnes unceremoniously tells the hero that she will enter the room, even if he is against it. She shows him what Timothy wrote on the piece of paper. Timothy wrote the word sophistication on a blank sheet of paper, which shows that he can write. She tells the Duke that Timothy can write and doesn't do stupid things. Agnes also informs the Duke that Timothy has been throwing frogs in her bed. Agnes tries to attract the attention of the Duke, who doesn't care about his nephew. Agnes reproaches Ethan for not even looking in his nephew's direction. Ethan sighs wearily, clearly preoccupied with other matters, and asks Agnes to leave. Agnes remarks that taking care of a child is not such a bad thing. Agnes asks the Duke to look at her when she is at home. Ethan clearly wants to be hated by the whole world. Although he does things that are simply a nightmare, the boy demands attention. But Ethan cares only about fencing and his obligations to the kingdom. Ethan is as bad at communicating as his nephew. Agnes thinks it's just unfair to ignore her. Ethan tries to reassure her that he is doing everything for his nephew. Ethan says that he is always ready to support his nephew if needed. Ethan wearily asks Agnes what else he needs to do for the baby. Agnes is furious. He doesn't understand what she should do in such a situation. Agnes reminds him that the way they live is not a normal environment for a family. Ethan says that even if he were the guardian, he wouldn't care about him anyway. Agnes and Ethan start arguing about what she meant to say. Agnes understands that they speak different languages. Agnes insists that Ethan make an effort to understand him. Ethan doesn't understand what Agnes is saying, and she's trying to get through to the Duke. Agnes tells him that she would like to get closer to the Duke. The Duke is shocked by her straightforwardness, but can't do anything about it. He arrogantly declares that, unlike her, he doesn't roll in manure. Agnes says that she also has no desire to talk to him. Agnes understands that he has to go through training, and which of them will win. The Duke's snow-white skin, blue eyes, and jet-black hair all make him handsome. Ethan sits and studies something. He keeps thinking about what Agnes said. Johann thinks the Duke is handsome, and is surprised that he refused Agnes. Johann knows that many people love the Duke for his appearance, and he holds a high position at the imperial court. Ethan is highly popular among women. Johann quickly apologizes to the Duke, who looks at him strangely. Ethan asks him what Johann wanted to say, and he begins. Johann notices that Agnes is not afraid of the Duke, and that he has become somewhat quiet. Ethan is shocked that even Johann thinks the Duke isn't afraid of Agnes. Johann quickly apologizes. He didn't mean to scare the Duke. Ethan notices that Johann talks too much about the teacher. Johann tells him that the teacher and the young Marquise are having a good time playing games and pranks. Johann notes that our teacher sometimes interprets pranks in a bad way. Johann shudders under the Duke's icy gaze and falls silent. The Duke coldly orders him to speak and not to remain silent. Johann asks him in surprise if he really didn't order him to keep quiet. The Duke declares that he will listen to Johann on the way. Ethan orders everyone to tell him everything, and Johann is forced to obey. The Duke believes that Agnes is not an ordinary person, and that she did not come to this house for no reason. Ethan notes that her voice hasn't bothered her so far, so he left her. This time, he remembers that Agnes declared that she would not simply leave the relationship between the Duke and the Marquise. Ethan smiles. He believes that everything that happens is for a reason. Meanwhile, our girl sank tiredly to the floor. She can't believe she talked to her killer. Agnes skeptically notes that re-educating these two will be a difficult step in her career. Agnes believes that everything is not as simple as it seems at first glance. Agnes remembers that she had never encountered such cold parents. Agnes knows that she is a simple hired worker, and if she interferes in the life of a student, she will simply be fired. But this time, Agnes has a different goal: to stop the Duke as soon as possible. Agnes is horrified. Why didn't they just fire her and be done with it, instead of putting up with her antics? Agnes suspects that something is wrong here, but decides to stick with the Duke to the end. After successfully saying goodbye to the Westwick children, she was unable to say goodbye to them properly. The girl doesn't want to be here at all, and she dreams of returning to the Westwick family. But she is here to ensure that she does not destroy anything that could change the future. She estimates that Timothy needs a teacher until he is 10 years old at the most. Moreover, our heroine decides to create the most comfortable environment possible. She tries to remember who the grumpy Duke married. All Agnes can think about is how Timothy's future guardians will ruin his life. That same morning, Agnes spends time with a mug of aromatic Earl Grey. She can't leave the house because they make excellent tea here. Timothy brings our heroine back to reality with a rough voice. Agnes asks Timothy to call her teacher, but he doesn't care about the etiquette of addressing her. Timothy seriously asks her if she is fooling around. Agnes smiles and tells him that she is teaching a lesson, but Timothy disagrees with her. Agnes tells him how good it is to spend time now and drink tea. Agnes is surprised that our hero doesn't want to study so well. Agnes tells Timothy that she won't fall for his trick of shirking her studies. Agnes tells Timothy that she agreed to let them argue about school. Timothy is indignant and says that it is unfair for an adult to argue with children. Timothy yells at Agnes, accusing her of not being mature enough. Agnes tells him that the competitive world is too cruel. She is well aware that her own life is at stake. Timothy yells at our heroine, accusing her of eating too much, and that he was collecting fruit for the table. He also says that he tied Agnes's hair to the bed in her sleep, but for her, it was all a joke. Agnes cheerfully asks him who taught him this. Timothy is silent and doesn't say anything to her. He just remains silent. Agnes suddenly realizes that for a boy to braid a girl's hair is like telling his mother that he loves her. Timothy asks her sharply what will happen if he tells. Agnes plays along with him affectionately and asks him to braid her hair, but to do it carefully. Agnes tells Timothy that untying his hair knots is very simple and easy. She also says that she will teach him in moderation, and to a certain extent, if he cleans his room. Agnes offers the boy to drink tea in peace, but he is simply terrified of the teacher. Agnes conspiratorially informs him that he is lost and must now obey her. Timothy snorts and remarks that he is annoyed by the way Agnes is acting. Timothy asks Agnes to pour him some tea. He surrenders in a duel with the teacher. Agnes realizes that he has given up and decides to pour him some tea. Timothy remains silent for a long time and does not say anything to her. Agnes suggests Timothy have a cup of tea and not be distracted. Timothy thinks she's a weird pervert because she's mumbling something. He tells her that she is ugly, which makes the situation worse. Agnes realizes that she and Timothy have a long way to go in terms of learning. Timothy walks down the corridor, thinking how strange this Agnes is. Timothy wants to spill paint on her clothes and do nasty things to Agnes, believing that she is his enemy since she challenged him. He hears the maids speculating that Agnes also works to earn money and that she is an aristocrat. They call Timothy a brat and sympathize with Agnes that such a young girl is forced to work with Timothy. The maids are discussing Agnes's family, as her father is broke. Timothy is perplexed when he hears all these maids' reasoning. One of the maids claims that Agnes said it was her job to look after Timothy. They discuss whether Agnes works sincerely or whether money decides everything. Timothy runs away in tears. He now knows that no one understands him. When Agnes sleeps, he mercilessly pours paint on her. Agnes wakes up to a sharp and foul smell of paint. Agnes sees Timothy in front of her and asks him why he did it. But Timothy remains silent and simply stares at her with his green eyes. Agnes turns to Timothy, but he rudely calls her that creature. Timothy orders Agnes in a commanding tone to get out of the estate immediately. Agnes asks him in surprise what happened and why Timothy is acting like this. Timothy tells her that she is just like everyone else. He tells Agnes that all adults are the same and that they are hypocrites. Agnes looks at Timothy with concern and asks him why he decided so. Timothy tells her that she does everything for money. Agnes asks Timothy in surprise, who told him such a terrible thing. Timothy tells her that he knows her family is ruined, and she only came to get money for him. Timothy, in tears, reproaches Agnes for only wanting money for him, and not him himself. Agnes is horrified. She can't understand who said this to Timothy. She tells him that everything he heard is true. She sternly tells Timothy that teaching is her job, and she and Timothy will work together. She did not deny that she was paid for teaching. Timothy is crying. No one has accepted him except Bane, and her all this time. The rest treat him the same. Timothy cries and tells her that even his uncle took him in because he simply had to. Timothy reproaches Agnes that she and Bane will not communicate with him, but talk and smile only because of money. Timothy tells her to leave and tells her not to look at him the wrong way. Timothy yells that she looks at him like his late mother and thinks it's cute, which confuses the boy. Agnes sighs. She knows that if Timothy wanted her to leave, he would have let her go instead of grabbing the sleeves of her dress. Timothy finally gave in to his true feelings. Agnes hugs Timothy and tells him that they could have talked instead of splashing paint. Timothy is choking on the pungent smell of paint, but Agnes doesn't want to let him go. Agnes slyly asks Timothy if he really likes her that much. She tells Timothy that she came to earn money, but she likes the boy. Timothy is amazed by what she says about him. Agnes tells him that she could find another place to live, but she enjoys teaching Timothy. She smiles sweetly and says, "How can she leave such a sweet student?" In the end, Agnes and Timothy hug and smile at each other. Agnes is dizzy from the stench of the paint Timothy chose. Consciousness leaves her, and the last person she sees is Ethan. Agnes falls. She loses consciousness at the sight of the Duke. The Duke picks her up in his arms, and the scene is like one of those romantic movies from the 90s. Agnes whispers to Ethan that he always acts arrogant. Ethan remarks skeptically, "Who's to say?" Agnes remembers a woman who urges her not to put pressure on herself. Many of Agnes's friends advised her not to devote herself to children, but to find a groom. Agnes tells her friends that she will definitely find herself a groom. Agnes' sisters did not help pay her father's medical bills, using their marriage as a cover. The Marquis asked her not to look at him with such eyes, and Agnes said that she could not do anything about it. The Marquis says that everyone who looks at him with such eyes reminds him of his wonderful uncle. The Marquis said that his uncle always looked at him as if he were worthless, and although he told him about his feelings, it was all to no avail. Agnes reminds him that the children he conceived need a father. The Marquis believes that he gave the children everything they needed: shelter, teachers, but he did not give them himself. Agnes is suddenly awakened by Ethan asking her how long she will sleep. Agnes tells him that she will not lose her sight because of a childish prank. Agnes hears the Duke say calmly, which means he has nothing to worry about. He also tells our heroine that if she applies the ointment correctly, the rash will go away. He reminds him in a cold voice that Timothy is under his care. Ethan denies sitting with her the whole time and says he came in a minute ago after the doctor. Agnes reminds him that the consequences of her illness could have become even worse. Ethan coldly informs her that she has the right to resign and he will pay her compensation. Agnes strongly resists. She will not leave here under any circumstances, and she does not need compensation. Ethan tells her that he knew she would say something like that, and therefore begins to ask Agnes to stay here. Agnes remembers her mother's words, that she shouldn't put too much pressure on herself, and that she would find someone who would accept her. The Duke suddenly takes her by the chin with his thin and dexterous fingers. Ethan tells her with a smile that he's glad she didn't inhale the paint. He asks Agnes to rest, as she has a difficult day ahead. He asks Agnes that if she has anything to report, she should pass it on to Carlo. We are shown a training ground where two swords are crossed. Ethan's opponent in the sparring match is Tristan, the crown prince of the Meyer Empire. Tristan cheerfully remarks that Ethan is always in the clouds. Ethan suddenly attacks Tristan, lunging at him with his sword. Ethan glances at him with his blue eyes and asks if they will continue fighting. Tristan feels uneasy because of his icy and cold eyes. He turns away and says that he has some things to do and will continue tomorrow. Tristan informs him that he has nothing more to expect from Ethan and that he is bored with the duel. Ethan reproaches his childhood friend for having bad taste. Tristan responds by reminding him of Ethan's behavior, that he constantly shows how tough he is. Tristan asks him if he is interested in doing the same thing. He replies that he is not. Tristan tells him that he thinks better than him. He also tells our hero that someone has come to visit him. Tristan says that he had no choice and could not stop that girl. A pretty blonde, Dahlia Marquise, Tristan's cousin, approaches them. Dahlia immediately begins to fawn over the Duke of Battenberg. Dahlia would very much like to see the cold Duke more often. Ethan coldly informs her that it's all a coincidence. Dahlia is glad to see Ethan. She didn't know that he was, in quotes, glad to see her. There is an awkward pause between them, which Tristan is eager to break. The pause lasts too long, and Tristan thinks about how to break it. Tristan tells Dahlia that she has to go, and they are going to an important meeting. Tristan whispers to our hero that they are moving away from Dahlia. Tristan asks Ethan if he is not interested in the beautiful bride. Tristan reminds Ethan that he needs an heir. Ethan tells him that he would rather adopt a child from another family. Ethan asks Tristan about him, forcing him to indulge in the heroin and then dump her. Ethan tells Tristan that he is perfectly healthy, thinking so. Ethan doesn't want to continue the conversation and leaves. Tristan asks Ethan to stop, and he turns around. Tristan asks Ethan if his sister's son is doing well. Tristan is glad to hear that Greta's son is doing well. He asks Ethan to say hello to the baby from him. Tristan teases Ethan that his cousin might raise someone else's child as her own. Ethan just tenses up when he hears Tristan say something like that. Ethan remembers having a sister who outshone everyone with her beauty and swordsmanship. As children, Greta always told Ethan that he was starting a fight on the wrong foot. She said that he acted the same way she did as a child, and Ethan was bothered by the fact that his sister compared him to him. Greta didn't understand why Ethan felt so uncomfortable being compared to her. Ethan tells her that one day he will defeat her. They start arguing about whether they can beat each other. Greta joined the Royal Guard along with Ethan. Meeting Marquis Reynolds changed her, made her a typical stupid girl. 8 years later, Ethan was in for an unpleasant surprise. His sister became a mother, and he met his nephew. The boy looked like his sister, but more like the hated Reynolds, who had stolen his sister. This was the reason for Ethan's coldness towards the boy. Ethan orders the boy to follow him. Ethan finds it suspicious that his sister died after falling from her horse with the Marquis. She was an excellent horsewoman. Ethan secretly conducts an investigation into his sister's death. Ethan suspects that Reynolds killed Greta and disappeared somewhere. Ethan decides to start looking for the criminal, but he finds it increasingly difficult to find him. Agnes bursts into the room, ignoring Johann as he tries to stop her. Agnes cheerfully asks Ethan where he was planning to go. Agnes asks Ethan if it's really true that she can't even ask him anything here, and he's such a despot. Agnes reminds him of what happened to her, and it turned out that the doctor forced her to take sick leave. Agnes goes into actress mode, saying that she will miss Timothy if she leaves. There's a pause between them, and Ethan doesn't know what she wants. Ethan gives her a dark look. Agnes shuddered sharply. She did not expect such a cold look. Ethan suddenly sees that the girl is afraid of him. Agnes suddenly begins to beg him to have lunch with Timothy. Ethan declares that he is not going to waste an hour of his life on Timothy. Ethan demands that Agnes leave and leave him alone. Agnes falls silent. It hurts her to hear him think that way about Timothy. Ethan stands up and tells her that it's time for Agnes to go. Agnes lingers and says she has something she wants to tell him. She tells him, in an unexpectedly cheerful tone, that she wants to stay with him. Ethan is horrified. He also has to provide her with compensation. Agnes informs him in a sly tone that he doesn't owe anything. Ethan tells her that he didn't expect her to ask such a thing. Agnes happily informs him that he will take the blame for Timothy's mistake. Ethan hangs his head and orders her to leave. He tells Agnes that if she doesn't shut up, he won't stop. Agnes starts making faces at him, but Ethan orders her to leave. So Ethan finds himself alone in a study filled with books. Agnes is happy with her victory. She was able to persuade the bogeyman, the Duke, to talk to Timothy. Suddenly, Agnes is brought out of her happy thoughts by someone's voice. It's Carlo, who informs her that she has been granted leave. He hands the girl a suitcase and tells her to leave the estate. The girl understands that everyone wants to kick her out of here. Carlo explains to her that all she does is disturb the peace. He asks the heroine to take care of herself, as it is too noisy with her in the castle. Carlo tells her that the carriage is ready and he will take her there. The girl is glad to hear this, and she follows the gloomy butler. She knows it would be great to have Timothy by her side. The girl asks if she can see Timothy, but Carlo doesn't want that. She realizes she hasn't seen Timothy since the paint drama. Carlo tells her that it is time for the girl to leave. Agnes happily informs him that they will see each other in 5 days. Now is the perfect time to find out what's going on. She decides that she will talk to her mother as soon as she gets home. The day she returned to the past, she couldn't understand where she was. Agnes didn't understand where her head was if it had been cut off. She is joyfully greeted by a middle-aged woman with a braid around her head. Agnes was surprised to see her mother enter the room. She is surprised that she calmly asks if she had a nightmare. Agnes realizes that she scared her mother when she asked her about what happened. Agnes knows she won't be in a row when she finds out she's got a job in the Duke's house. She remembers how old she is now, given the time jump. Agnes tries to remember that she was her and was transported many years back. She studied because it brought in income. Work saved her from the fact that her mother was always waiting for her at home, crying and crying. At that time, her feelings for her parents faded. But nevertheless, our heroine could not prevent the tragedy that happened to them. The heroine had saved up enough money to celebrate their funeral, but now she had to support her sisters alone, whom she did not care about. The mother is worried about her daughter, asking why she is not eating. Agnes had no idea that she would have the chance to see her mother again. She is generally worried that she left an unhealing scar on her daughter's soul. Agnes reassures her that the paint accident did not cost her her life. The mother is worried about her daughter, who has fallen into the clutches of such sadists. Agnes reminds that she works for money. Agnes abruptly declares to her chatterbox mother that she will not marry. She tells her mother that she will stay alone because it will be more peaceful. Her mother tells her that her sisters have already been here. Agnes notices that her mother is more lost and distracted after her words. Agnes tells her that she wanted to discuss something with them. The mother is immediately ready to call them, as she is sure that they will come running to help their sister. Agnes informs her that the Duke is not married and wanted to discuss his engagement. She asks her mother, who will become the future Duchess. The mother imagines that her daughter has fallen in love with the Duke, but Agnes responds by spitting water in her face. She declares with a terrible face that everything is not as she thought. Agnes denies that the Duke and she have anything in common. Agnes's mother continues to fantasize about her daughter marrying the Duke. Agnes is categorically against such ideas of her mother. She knows that her mother is already planning everything related to her daughter's marriage. Mother Agnes continues to chatter about what a cutie this handsome Duke is. Agnes tries to persuade her mother not to do this, but she doesn't want to listen and continues to fantasize about her daughter's future. Mother Agnes continues to talk about how good the Duke is and how he has broken a lot of ladies' hearts. Mother tells Agnes that there is no one here. She tells Agnes that the previous Duke and Duchess have died. Agnes begins to feel sympathy for her killer, as he lost his entire family. Mother tells Agnes that many girls try to win him over, but nothing works. Agnes thinks the Duke must have been dating someone. She is surprised that such a handsome man died alone, and in a past life. Agnes decides to give them the family warmth that the Duke and Timothy so lacked. Her mother tells her that Ethan prefers the company of the Crown Prince. She tells her that the Duke has no one else. Agnes realizes that the Duke truly has no friends. Agnes doesn't understand why he judges everyone by gender. Unexpectedly, the mother says that she understands her daughter's feelings. Agnes sharply tells her that she knows her mother will not approve of a relationship with a handsome man. Agnes cheerfully says that she will go home. Mother tells Agnes that she is very sorry. Agnes cheerfully tells her that she has no regrets. Agnes goes to her room to sleep, and she doesn't want to see her mother. Agnes doesn't want to think about her life at all. Agnes decides to focus on teaching Timothy. Agnes wearily declares that she wants to sleep and is already tired of the house. We are shown a castle in which lives an arrogant, boring Duke and his nephew. The Duke sits at the table, and he asks about what can be done for the country. Ethan dines alone, with no one to share information with. Timothy also eats, but he wants only one thing: to get away from the Duke, who is staring at him like that. The boy is terrified that he will have to communicate with the Duke. The boy is afraid that he will have to communicate with the Duke, whom he cannot stand. He thinks about who asked him about this in the first place. He thinks that he will be able to dissuade her from this decision. The boy was sure that Agnes would return quickly. He feels that he has deeply offended Agnes. The Duke thinks that he has offended Agnes too, and eats in silence. The boy knows that the Duke hates him for what he did. The boy doesn't know why the Duke took him with him at all, but he had a right to speak before the imperious Duke. The Duke notices the sad boy, and he feels embarrassed that he received his gaze. The boy's plate and fork fall out of his hands. The Duke is silent and does not know what to say, and neither does the boy. Johann and the butler look at each other and ask what's wrong with them. Ethan is silent and looks at him. He looks at the boy sternly. The scoundrel feels uneasy about what is happening. The Duke suddenly gets up from the table, saying that he doesn't like anything. The Duke stands up abruptly and walks away from the boy. The table is empty because no one has eaten anything, and they are upset. Timothy remains in proud solitude, silent as he sees the Duke off. Timothy remains silent, ashamed of what he did to Agnes. Agnes is silent. She looks in the mirror and evaluates herself. Agnes ties a bow around her neck and decides that she must run away from home. Agnes thinks about how her family got on her nerves with what she did and how she had side effects in her past life. She meant that her dad, although he has health problems. Agnes believes that she has done a lot of things and wants to fix everything in the past. Agnes decides that she will make amends for her past. Agnes knows that she will stay here. She is very upset. Suddenly, her mother comes up and tells Agnes that someone wants to talk to her. Agnes asks in surprise who wants to see her. The butler suddenly tells her that he wanted to see her. He tells our heroine that Timothy has completely gotten out of hand without her. Agnes tells him that she will go and talk to him. Agnes reveals that he is the family's butler, Timothy, whom she protects. Agnes says that she can handle Timothy and that he is a dear child to her. Mother asks Agnes to take care of herself, and she will cope with what is happening. Later, in the carriage, the butler wonders why Agnes didn't tell him anything. Agnes learns that she has one night left after returning. Agnes is horrified that Timothy is such a naughty boy, and no one can calm him down. Agnes learns of the situation after dinner, and is horrified by the Duke's behavior. The butler recounts what the Duke said. Agnes wonders what she said that made Timothy decide to help. The butler asks what she could have said that made Timothy rebel. Agnes understands that the Duke is about to receive a death sentence. Agnes isn't sure what she said. Agnes arrives at the house and is so furious that eerie sounds echo throughout the house. When Agnes enters the house, shards of a broken cup fly at her. Timothy sharply asks Agnes what she said to his uncle. She and Timothy start yelling at each other about what she told the teacher. Timothy screams that he knows the Duke simply hates him. Agnes is very upset by what Timothy tells her. Timothy asks Agnes that if she is not happy with something, she should just say so. Agnes realizes that she simply made a mistake. Agnes knows that Timothy needs to be supported and loved, not bullied. Timothy sharply asks her about something she doesn't know. She says that it is not known what the Duke needs. Agnes suggests that the Duke may not know what Timothy did. Timothy screams that if she interferes in the relationship between him and the Duke again, then she will regret it. Timothy starts yelling at Agnes that it is none of her business, that she is interfering in his relationship. Timothy yells at Agnes that she doesn't deserve to be treated well after what she did. Agnes tells him that she always asked to be called a teacher, and that she will think about his words. Agnes gently tells Timothy that this will not happen again, and everything will be fine. Timothy cannot resist Agnes's charm. Agnes says that she wants to talk to Timothy. Agnes asks Timothy not to throw things, and not to express such anger. Agnes reminds him that Timothy owns the whole house. Timothy reminds her that the Duke owns the entire house, and is richer. Timothy thinks she's so petty and gets upset over trifles. Agnes is happy that Timothy remains a child, and that's all. Agnes grabs Timothy, and he breaks out of her arms. He does not want to go with Agnes. Timothy yells about how awkward he is, and demands that the girl let him go. Agnes says that Timothy will come to her class tomorrow. Timothy begins to feel sad about his parents, who are tall. Agnes cheerfully tells him that he will remain low. Timothy gets angry when he looks at Agnes. He gets very angry. Suddenly, Timothy yells at Agnes because her ears are wilted. Agnes tells Timothy that she wishes him sweet dreams. Agnes thinks about cleaning Timothy's room later. Agnes remembers Timothy as he was, tall and thin. Maybe because he seemed thin. Timothy is a child who asks for constant attention. Agnes knows that she understands the enemy too well. Timothy wanted to grow up as quickly as possible, but he caused a real scandal at the age of 15, when the girl had children from him. He was exiled and left behind more children. Agnes begins to worry about what is happening in the Duke's life. Whether he is married, Agnes can't remember if he has a fiancé. Agnes knows she can't fix Timothy's attitude towards her. Subsequently, Agnes cleans Timothy's room, and now it is spotlessly clean. Agnes begins to decide whether she can raise Timothy, whether she can force the Duke to join the rebellion. She thinks about being a friend to Timothy, but Agnes begins to remember that Timothy treats her like a commoner. Agnes decides to get closer to Timothy to dissuade him from rebellion. But all her ideas about the Duke and Timothy are more and more dangerous and crazy. Timothy notices her mood and asks if she is okay. Timothy begins to scold Agnes for what she did. Agnes asks Timothy to start reading and not get distracted by all sorts of nonsense. Timothy is upset that she doesn't want to do anything like that. Agnes sees that Timothy is a good student. It is clear that his parents made an effort to educate him. Agnes sees Timothy simply reading a history book when it is incredibly boring. Agnes is surprised that Timothy studies so hard. Agnes can't stop admiring how sweet Timothy is, but Timothy suddenly insists that she put the books away. Timothy yells at her for staring at him too much. Agnes tells Timothy that she will leave so as not to disturb Timothy. Timothy starts throwing books at Agnes because he knows she'll still stare at him. Agnes realizes that Timothy is still very sweet. The sensitive butler immediately approaches Agnes and asks if everything is all right. Agnes cheerfully asks the butler that his ladyship has left. The butler warns Agnes that if this continues, he will not be able to predict the Duke's mood. The butler asks Agnes to continue her studies. Agnes is surprised that everything will be sweet and smooth from now on. The butler tells Agnes that Timothy is a very smart child. Agnes asks Timothy about his continued tantrums. Agnes explains to the butler that Timothy needs attention. Agnes convinces the butler that he just needs attention. Agnes cannot tell the butler that Timothy will join the rebellion. The butler says that he cannot convince his lordship of what is happening. Meanwhile, the action moves to the training ground, where Prince Tristan is standing. Ethan doesn't know what he can tell Sir Tristan. He is found by the butler, who says that he wants to talk. Carlo says that the teacher came too, and Ethan tensed up. Carlo says that Timothy tearfully begged for the girl to be returned. Agnes decides to discuss something with the Duke of Battenberg. Suddenly, a handsome guy, like Tristan, Ethan's future rival, appears and wants to get to know him. Tristan is ready to listen to Agnes's personal request right now. Tristan asks the butler how many years it has been since he visited the estate. But when Tristan starts talking, things get even worse. Tristan abruptly asks Ethan if he would like to introduce them. Agnes is shocked that Tristan is talking to Ethan. Tristan happily informs her that she is the one who teaches Greta's son well. Tristan begins to persuade the teacher to tell her about what happened to Timothy and how he is doing. Tristan tells her that he would not ask her about anything if it weren't for Greta's son. Ethan sighs heavily and says nothing. Ethan asks Agnes to stay in the office and wait for him. He is sweetly jealous of her towards Tristan. Ethan and Tristan get into a fight, which Ethan wins. Ethan notices that all he does is worry about Greta. Agnes can't stand to hear them quarrel sweetly and make up. Agnes hoped that Ethan would be involved in Timothy's training. Ethan states that he has no time for nonsense with Timothy. Agnes reminds him about dinner and says that she and Timothy are growing apart. Tristan asks Agnes if she didn't tell him that the boy doesn't know how to use tools. Ethan tells Agnes that the prince should not be involved in this matter. Agnes understands that the Duke is too adamant and does not listen to her. Ethan tells her to mind her own business, as she is just a servant. Agnes reproaches the Duke for being too cold with Timothy. Agnes realizes that if things continue like this, Timothy will take the wrong path. Agnes reminds him that if he turns onto the red carpet, it will be the Duke's fault. Agnes demands that he apologize to Timothy and explain everything to him. What if Timothy, after being exiled, joins the family and starts a rebellion? In front of the crown prince, she doesn't have to think about rebellion. Agnes asks him what will happen if a rebellion suddenly breaks out. Ethan coldly tells her that the situation is none of her concern. Agnes tells him that Timothy needs love and help. Agnes believes that the relationship between the Duke and Timothy will warm up if the Duke takes a step towards their relationship. Ethan reminds her that he can fire her at any time. Agnes says that she can leave at any time. Agnes cannot decide what to do with the Duke's family. She is confident in her persistence. Ethan cannot stop her. She asks them all to continue the conversation without her. Tristan tells her that Agnes is a good girl and that he shouldn't treat her like that. Agnes decides to clean up before meeting the prince. Timothy asks her why she ran here. He even stopped reading. Agnes can barely breathe. She doesn't have enough air to breathe. Timothy wonders how long she ran, how much she could breathe. Timothy says that he will grow up soon, and she won't have to run after him. Agnes comes up to him, and she wants to say something. Agnes praises Timothy and says that he will soon be as tall as she is. Agnes tells him that soon he will become taller, even taller than her. Timothy doesn't understand the strange look she gives him. Timothy asks our heroine not to say things that would make everything even worse. Timothy asks her what she was so busy with. Timothy guesses that she wants to arrange a meeting between him and his parent. He yells at our heroine that his uncle doesn't care and that he shouldn't have done it. Timothy realizes that Agnes will ignore his words, since for her, everything is educational policy. Agnes says that she will not leave his uncle alone with him. Timothy asks her to just be more friendly towards her uncle. Agnes tells him that he cannot get along with Timothy because he himself is a big child. Agnes asks Timothy to be honest with her. Agnes tells Timothy that she will talk to his uncle if he doesn't like Timothy. Timothy tells her that he won't tell since she can't lie. Agnes assures Timothy that she will change her policy if something goes wrong. Timothy doesn't understand who Agnes thinks she is. Agnes promises that if something is wrong, she will stop interfering. Timothy falls silent, and a pause hangs between them. Timothy allows Agnes to do whatever she wants. Timothy admits that he doesn't care what Agnes does. He remembers his childhood when he saw his mother. He asked his mother if she wrote letters for her father, and she was surprised that he was at home. Timothy asks permission to show him what she wrote. She talks about what she writes to Uncle Ethan, who is a real pest. Timothy is surprised by her letter and believes that Ethan is a good person. The mother picks up her son and tells him that he is right. Ethan is a wonderful person. She sees how shy her son is when she hugs and kisses him. She tells Timothy that he is too young to understand his uncle's character. She tells Timothy the truth. Ethan is a very rude man, but she is proud of him and Timothy, believing that they will get along when they meet. But when Timothy stood in front of Ethan, he resembled a boa constrictor that would strangle him. Timothy hated Ethan in his heart and also wanted to get at least a drop of attention. Timothy wanted to be recognized for who he was. Timothy told Agnes everything, believing that she would understand him. Agnes asks Timothy to do the same as before. She believes that everything will be fine. Agnes asks Timothy to just trust her. Tristan cheerfully tells Ethan that he should have been invited because Agnes is a funny person. Tristan is amused that Ethan stands in a stupor from Agnes's antics, not knowing what to do. He is having fun, as are the servants over Ethan, because Agnes is funny. Ethan frowns and denies standing there in front of Agnes. But Tristan doesn't listen. Tristan is even surprised that Ethan has become like this. He brings up the subject of his cousin, Dahlia, again, which is a real headache for Ethan. Tristan becomes curious about the teacher's name. Ethan thinks it's an order. Tristan cheerfully tells him that it is a request. Just a stupid request. Ethan is silent. He doesn't know what to say to Tristan's words. Tristan states that, judging by her appearance, she is about 20 years old. Tristan asks if Ethan really wants him to ask her that. Ethan forces the teacher's name out of his mouth. Tristan is surprised when he hears the name Agnes. He does not know anyone at court with that name and surname. Ethan tells Tristan that he did not find out about her by his own will. He learned about everything from archival records and knew that Agnes was the Baron's daughter. Ethan thinks that he believes Agnes was lying outside the door, listening to him from inside. Tristan laughs and tells Ethan that he already likes Agnes. Ethan claims she is a strange woman who smells like manure. Tristan finds it funny that the girl and Ethan met when they were both in manure. Ethan decides that he will not tell Tristan anything about Agnes. Ethan himself believes that all this is impossible. Ethan is starting to get jealous of Tristan and Agnes, and it's really cute. Tristan decides it's time for him to stop being distracted. Tristan claims that all of this has something to do with Greta. Tristan says that he might not answer because it would make him angry. Tristan agrees that he is causing problems. Tristan learns that what happened to the child's parents, but they were the ones who died. Tristan explains that he knows that Greta couldn't have just fallen off her horse. Tristan asks Ethan that he should close his eyes because his love, Greta, has died. Ethan advises that pretending not to say anything is the best help from Tristan. Tristan challenges Ethan's opinion. He can no longer remain silent about Greta's death. Ethan says that they have already captured a hostage. He says that in any case, gossips are bound to appear. Tristan realizes that the hostage is Greta's son, whom he swore to protect. Tristan asks that Ethan be sure to show up at the ball. Tristan warns Ethan that rumors are already circulating. Ethan is silent and looks at Tristan. Ethan tells Tristan that she will take him there. Tristan states that he will be surrounded by a bunch of guards. Ethan watches the door slam in his face. Tristan cheerfully adds, before leaving, that Agnes is a much nicer girl than she is weird. Time flew by very quickly. School went by quickly. Agnes spends 2 hours with Timothy every day. Agnes knows that she studies with Timothy every Thursday. Timothy has finally finished studying and is ready to rest. Agnes looks with pleasure at what Timothy has done. Agnes admires the fact that Timothy is so smart, and he knows that he is perfection itself. Agnes thinks Timothy can handle everything, and he's a fast learner. Timothy tells her that everything is child's play for him. Agnes understands that Timothy is still a big child. Agnes says that Timothy will know everything very well. Timothy tells her that he was taught by his late father. Timothy talks about how his father was very fragile, and Timothy's mother laughed at him. He talks about how Timothy's mother was a different person. She was in the prince's guard. Agnes feels good when Timothy tells her about his family. Timothy looks at Agnes, glad that his story has cheered her up. Timothy blushes and says that he is glad that she liked the story. Agnes encourages the boy that his father was good and not weak at all. Timothy is embarrassed and says that he doesn't know the truth now. Timothy announces that the lesson was very boring. Agnes is very upset that she prepared in vain to make Timothy enjoy the lesson. Timothy says that he really enjoys studying, but not today. Agnes says that she enjoys teasing Timothy. Agnes says that the boys are more pugnacious and childish. It's a pity that he doesn't understand jokes. Timothy is said to be left with wrinkles on his face like a monkey. Timothy yells at Agnes that it's none of her business. Timothy yells that Agnes is also an adult, and she doesn't understand anything. Timothy is so cute that Agnes can't help but laugh. She tells Timothy that he should know that she is the most wonderful teacher in the world. Timothy is simply shocked by her self-confidence. Timothy runs away, but she says that the lesson is not over yet. Agnes asks him to say goodbye properly. Timothy rejoices and runs away. He runs to the door towards freedom. Agnes understands that it would be better for him to fix everything every day. Agnes is glad that Timothy has started to change and become normal. But the time had come for the second student, whom Agnes decided to educate. Johann is here again today and doesn't miss her. Johann is amazed that Agnes was allowed in, and by the Duke himself. Johann decides to open the door for Agnes, who was not expecting this. Agnes flies into the room, full of hope to teach his lordship. But suddenly, there was only silence at the door. Agnes stands and looks at the door. She wonders where his lordship is. Agnes usually heard the annoying voice, but now she doesn't hear it. Agnes is glad that she can live without the Duke's snide comments. Agnes brushed off the fact that he was 25. She generally believes that Ethan doesn't see her as a person. Suddenly, Agnes sees some pillow and wants to sit down. Agnes sits up. She didn't expect her to move. Agnes is shocked that the pillow is moving. The pillow turns out to be Ethan, covered from head to toe, who is clearly unhappy. Agnes and the Duke look at each other silently. They are in shock. Ethan asks angrily if he should call a doctor for Agnes. Agnes is horrified. She didn't expect this scoundrel to be here. Agnes is surprised that he is not sleeping in his bed. Agnes realizes that she woke Ethan for a reason. Ethan admits that he hasn't eaten for a long time and hasn't slept since Agnes arrived at the house. Agnes realizes that he is having a sleepy dream. Etna says that she shouldn't even try to make him her disciple. Agnes and Ethan argue about him wanting to be a student, but Ethan doesn't feel like it. Agnes says that she will insist that she is right, that a teacher is needed. Ethan tells Agnes that he is an absolutely amazing teacher. Agnes proudly says that Ethan is clearly a bad student who simply needs to be spanked. Agnes argues with him that the teacher does not wish anything bad on the student. She only wishes the best. Agnes yells that her teacher makes her happy. Ethan agrees that interacting with students makes kids happy, as does the teachers. Agnes begins to scold Ethan for being so strict. Ethan tells Agnes that she does just that. Agnes suddenly grabs the Duke by the shoulders and rushes at him, shaking him, shouting that he is wrong. Agnes says that she is worried about the Duke. It is the teacher's duty to check how the students eat and sleep. Agnes mentions to the Duke that if he sleeps 2 hours a day, he will die. Ethan stands up abruptly and says that he is not like the teacher. Ethan speaks sharply about how the teacher curses him in his soul. Agnes says that she only wants him to be happy. Agnes fantasizes about the Duke taking care of Timothy and him meeting someone who will make his heart tremble. The Duke asks Agnes to leave immediately, as she has raised a forbidden subject. The Duke coldly tells the girl that she is nobody to follow him, and also that it is not up to her to decide when he will marry. Agnes suddenly realizes that all the words are just super. Agnes is horrified that the Duke is going to marry. Agnes also finds the topic of marriage unpleasant. Agnes herself understands perfectly well that she cannot sympathize with the man who killed her. Agnes suddenly tells the Duke that a short nap would do him good. She takes his hands despite his protests. Ethan, horrified, asks him what he did. Agnes cheerfully tells him that he might feel unwell if he doesn't sleep. Agnes puts Ethan to bed because he is so stubborn. She tells Ethan that here is his blanket. Agnes sweetly informs him that he should sleep and that she will guard his sleep. Agnes wishes sweet dreams and runs away from the Duke. Unexpectedly, Agnes runs into Tristan. Tristan is glad that Agnes says that she is a teacher. Agnes thinks he's laughing because the Duke simply hates her. Tristan tells Agnes that she is a good influence on his friend. Agnes remembers that she behaved simply terribly. Tristan makes a sudden move on her and asks her to be nice. Agnes didn't expect to be able to address her informally. Tristan asks Agnes about something that is unexpectedly possible, and he wants to talk to her alone. Tristan suggests spending some time with her. Tristan tells that he ran from the palace to see her. Agnes knows that Tristan is the only crown prince who has done nothing but start wars. But if he sits on the throne, then the war will begin. Agnes says that Tristan is just a naughty student. Tristan explains that Agnes simply doesn't understand Timothy, who is as naughty as Greta. Agnes decides to ask Tristan for a favor. Tristan becomes curious about what she wants to do. Agnes tells Tristan that he just fell asleep. Agnes asks Tristan to let him get some sleep. Agnes says that the Duke needs rest. Tristan is already imagining something indecent when Agnes tells him that the Duke told her everything personally. Agnes is trying to understand what is going on. Tristan says that he will let Ethan rest, but Agnes will spend time with him, with Tristan. Tristan says outright that the Duke is a bore, and that it is much more fun with him, Tristan. Agnes goes out with Tristan to get some fresh air. Tristan asks Agnes to tell him about Greta's son, but she says it's all confidential. Tristan says that everything is too simple. Tristan asks if he can talk calmly about Ethan. Agnes says she's working to help Ethan. Tristan notices that Agnes has a hard time with Timothy, but she says he is a capable student. Agnes tells the prince that Timothy is very kind and responsible. Agnes says she has nothing to do. Tristan thinks she should. Tristan notices that Agnes can't get along with Timothy. Agnes is surprised that he thinks she is wasting her time. Tristan suddenly becomes very serious. He tells Agnes that he thinks she is wasting her time. Agnes says that she has no chance. Is she doing something wrong? Tristan says that Agnes is doing everything in vain. There is a pause between them. The silence lasts for a very long time, even 2 hours. Agnes says that everything is very good. Agnes tells Tristan that their relationship as the Duke and Timothy should be happy, but everything is bad. Agnes tells Tristan that the boy lost his parents a year ago. Tristan says that a year has passed since Greta passed away. Agnes realizes that she cannot change the Duke's essence. She understands that the Duke's appearance can be changed, but his relationship with Timothy depends on him. Tristan talks about creating the perfect environment for a child. Agnes says that the Duke is not interested in the marriage that Tristan proposes. Agnes complains to Tristan that it is time for the Duke to marry at his age. But Tristan thinks differently. Tristan slyly asks her what about her. Agnes is shocked when Tristan suggests that it's time for her to get married too. Tristan is still trying to set the girl up with Ethan. Agnes clearly doesn't want this to turn into some silly romance. Tristan asks Agnes to do him a favor. Tristan invites Agnes to be his partner at the upcoming ball. Tristan is surprised that Agnes needs an explanation as to why her. Tristan says that he will not accept any refusal, and she will go to the ball with him. Tristan thinks that if she goes to the ball, then Ethan will definitely come running. Tristan says that he will just come as soon as he finds out everything. Tristan offers the girl to become the Duke's wife and takes care of Timothy. Tristan tells her about Dahlia, who is ready to take care of Timothy. Agnes is shocked by what she heard about Dahlia, but she is not upset, but decides that this is wonderful news that will solve everything. The Duke's castle is shaken by the cry that the imperial ball awaits them all. Timothy starts shouting about demanding details of what she will do in the hall. Agnes covers her ears in advance and says that she is running to the ball with the prince. Agnes doesn't understand the fuss because the ball is only in a month. Timothy sadly asks him if she will really go to the ball. Timothy screams that she is really going to this ball. Agnes says that she cannot refuse the crown prince. Agnes tells Timothy how the whole situation happened. Agnes says that there will be no lesson and she will tell the butler everything. Agnes really wanted to attend the imperial ball. Agnes dreamed of visiting him with her fiancé at the ball. But Agnes had not seen her fiancé since the engagement was broken off. They saw each other several times, and she practically doesn't remember her fiancé. Agnes can't even remember it, and isn't sure it was love. Agnes changes Timothy's clothes, but he doesn't want to listen to her. Timothy asks what happened that she doesn't want to go to the ball. Timothy asks Agnes that if she doesn't like it, then not to go. Timothy shouts that he will refuse the prince for her if she cannot. Timothy yells that she is not fit for the ball, and that he will ruin everything. Agnes tells him that this is all just a social gathering. Timothy is being capricious. She doesn't believe what's happening. Timothy says that she shouldn't communicate with other people. Agnes is surprised that he calls her teacher for the first time. Timothy yells rudely at Agnes. He yells at her not to pretend to cry. Timothy asks Agnes not to go, and is even ready to call her a teacher. Agnes can't even imagine Timothy's face. Agnes cheerfully tells Timothy that she scared Timothy. She didn't cry at all. Agnes asks if Timothy was worried about her. Agnes says she is surprised that Timothy said that friends are not important. Timothy asks about the fact that she has a lot of friends. Timothy asks seriously if she really thinks she has friends. Agnes says that she believes that even the Duke has friends. Timothy is jealous of Agnes's relationships with other people and says that she should only be friends with him. Timothy shouts that since she is leaving, something awaits her. Timothy says, pointing his finger at her, that he won't let her go just like that. Agnes is surprised by what is happening and is worried about Timothy. Agnes tries to calm Timothy down and tell him that everything is okay. She says that it is time to finish the lesson. She decides it's time to put the necessary action into action. Agnes gives the child a task to do. So 3 o'clock comes, which means it's time for her to go. The Duke is worried that Agnes never came to him. Ethan is worried about what is happening, why Agnes has been gone for 3 days. Agnes May Graham is an honest person of honest principles. Even Carlo and Johan admitted that there was something strange about her. Ethan pretended not to listen to Agnes, but he enjoyed her company. Ethan is accompanied by Tristan, who asks him if he likes it. Tristan praised Agnes for standing her ground. Ethan says there's something real about Agnes. Ethan is generally pleased with the work Agnes is continuing. Tristan looks at her cheerfully and is amused. Ethan admits that when she does something wrong, he gets mad. Ethan says she is a funny and honest teacher. Tristan calls Agnes cute and Ethan tenses up. Ethan asks if it is a wild animal. Is it true? Tristan says he doesn't want to compete with Ethan over the girl. Tristan tells him that he has invited a girl to the ball. Tristan asks Ethan why he is silent. Ethan reports that he is not angry at all. Tristan mentions that Ethan can be downright creepy when it comes to the ball. Tristan says he doesn't think a little romance can hurt. Ethan is surprised that his best friend would do this unexpectedly. He'll probably be smiling when he asks her to the ball, and she won't even understand that he is taking responsibility. Ethan believes that Agnes is just as taken with the prince as all the girls. Ethan is worried about falling in love with the prince and being gone for 3 days. Ethan doesn't understand why this upsets him. Agnes has changed her clothes at this time and is waiting for a certain Duchess of Westwick. The girl is worried that Madame Westwick will not come again. She doesn't understand why she was invited to tea. Agnes thinks that Westwick is a good person because she forgave her for firing her. Agnes thinks the Duke is celebrating because she's not around. Suddenly, something bothers Agnes's eyes. It was as if she had gone back 14 years. Old clothes, clean streets, everything is so clean here. And the melancholy feeling that Agnes does not belong to anyone, nor to this world. Every moment shows Agnes that something terrible is going to happen. Agnes seems to return to the moment when her head was cut off. Everything is fine, but gradually everything is changing. So Agnes arrived at the royal palace. Agnes suddenly notices someone and stops her gaze. The children, the Westwick twins, run up to Agnes and are happy to see her. The main character asks how her beautiful angels, Ben and Celine, were doing. Ben complains to her that he missed her, and Agnes's heart breaks. Selina is clearly unhappy that she left them. Selina begins to scold our heroine for not writing the letter. Agnes tells her that she had her reasons. Lady Westwick approaches Agnes and is glad to see her. Agnes is stopped by Celine, who starts chatting with her about this and that. Agnes asks them to talk to their mother, not to her. Lady Westwick tells them that she will definitely wait. Agnes apologizes for abandoning the children when they needed her. Agnes says she didn't even have time to write. The girl learns the truth that Agnes has not forgotten about them. Agnes tells them that she misses her children very much. Ben and Selina start arguing about Agnes, and she stops them. Agnes feels awkward about Miss Westwick being kind to her after she left. Suddenly, Miss Westwick stops her children and asks the heroine to help her. Miss Westwick says she is about to leave. The naughty boys realize that their games have gone too far. The children quickly ran to the delicious tea party, racing each other. Agnes decides to tell that these children are the heirs of Marquis Reynold, who is now 7. Agnes tells our heroine about all her misadventures. Miss Westwick asks her what she should do to help her. Agnes says that she loves children very much. Anyone who lied to Miss Westwick later regretted their decision. Agnes talks about how friends need to know what's going on, and how the Marquis needs friends. Miss Westwick asks her directly if she wants to use her children for the Marquis. She reproaches Agnes for what is happening, that she is still shameless. Agnes explains that Ben and Selina can change the Marquis. Miss Westwick listens to the suggestions that she make for her children to become friends with Timothy. Miss Westwick realizes that Agnes likes the Marquis. Agnes smiles sweetly and says that Timothy is simply wonderful. Miss Westwick says she still has doubts, but then she announces that she is changing her mind. Miss Westwick says that everything will be fine, and she will trust the teacher. Miss Westwick believes that now the teacher has returned, she will communicate not only with the Marquis, but also with the children. She asks our heroine to join her for dinner. Agnes is shocked by this outcome of the decision, and will help with the children. Later, Carlo tells her that this is not a good idea. The heroine tries to convince the butler that everything will be fine. Carlo says that only she knows that the child is very sweet and kind. Agnes is amazed that he says that Timothy is a sweet child. Agnes says that he hasn't been any better lately. The butler says that he was able to sleep peacefully. The butler says that only with her does Timothy behave better. Agnes is surprised by what the butler is telling her, because the boy has completely gotten out of hand, and now, the butler says that Timothy began to behave well after her departure. Agnes was unaware that he showed no interest in other employees. The butler informs her that she was not watching what he was doing. The butler believes that the boy is behaving abnormally to his old eyes. Agnes doesn't know what to say to the butler's questions. Agnes thinks about what she did wrong when she left the boy. As Timothy became softer, so did the people around him. If Timothy treats people like he treats her, then they will love him. Timothy opened his heart, but only to Agnes. Agnes insists that Timothy needs group lessons. The butler says that he needs to think about what Agnes said. Agnes very tearfully asks the butler to help her, and he agrees. He tells Agnes that he needs to get Timothy's consent for group lessons. Agnes is surprised that Timothy needs to get so much in order to make friends. The butler says that Timothy's communications are strictly under the Duke's control. Agnes wants only one thing, for the Duke to have friends. Agnes realizes that she acted too rashly. Agnes decides to get the Duke's permission, and she will have it. The butler says that the conversation will continue when she receives the Duke's agreement. Agnes thought that today would never end. Agnes doesn't understand why no one communicates with Timothy, and he doesn't communicate with other people. Agnes decides to talk about the lessons that are ongoing tomorrow. Suddenly, something comes to Agnes's mind. The Duke appears before her and is unhappy that she has returned so late. Agnes is amazed to find the Duke waiting for her at the entrance to the room. The Duke asks why Agnes is returning so late. Agnes says that she needs to report. Agnes says that all of this concerns Timothy. She informs that the Duke needs to listen to her. Agnes and the Duke look at each other for a long time. They argue about Timothy. Agnes asks menacingly if she can come back in. Ethan asks her no less menacingly what she was doing. Agnes asks what is bothering him. Did she do something inappropriate? Ethan asks in a jealous tone if she was with the prince. Ethan says that she was invited to the ball and he already knows about it. He rudely forbids her to go to the ball, although it is none of his business. Agnes is surprised by the Duke's straightforwardness. Then, Agnes is overcome with rage. How dare he forbid her to go to the ball? Agnes tells him that she is not going to give any advice. Ethan tries to stop Agnes, but she doesn't want to listen to him. Agnes reminds him that she also has a will, and she does not intend to report to him. Agnes says she has returned from an official meeting with Ms. Westwick. Agnes informs him that this lady will help with Timothy's education. Agnes asks Ethan to leave, because she doesn't want to see him because of jealousy. Agnes reminds him that she came here, not Ethan. Ethan suddenly tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. Ethan tells her in a gentle voice that peace and quiet has finally arrived. Agnes is worried that Ethan was just smiling. He suddenly warns Agnes about some kind of pranks, and that Agnes should be careful. He reminds Agnes that she must choose wisely who she lives with. Agnes realizes that Ethan is worried about her. Suddenly, Ethan's hands reach for her waist, and she is startled. Ethan opens the door for her, and Agnes is surprised by his actions. Ethan asks Agnes to come back not as late as she should. After this, Ethan leaves and doesn't want to see Agnes anymore. Agnes doesn't understand how he can be so familiar with her. Agnes remembers that even her father never talks about curfew. Agnes understands that now she needs to change something in Timothy's life. She was amazed that Timothy remembered her for a reason. Agnes realizes that Timothy didn't have time for homework. Agnes doesn't understand why Timothy treats her this way. Carlo asks Agnes why she is in such a hurry to get to lunch. Carlo makes Agnes happy by telling her that they will have something tasty today. Carlo slyly asks Agnes if everything is okay. Agnes tells him that she is not avoiding the haughty Duke. Agnes suddenly declares that she does not want to steal Carlo's work. Agnes states that she is very hungry and it is time for her to go. Agnes ran as fast as she could away from the entire palace. Agnes tries to reassure herself that she will not avoid anyone. Agnes turns red as a poppy when she thinks of the Duke. She knows that there was no show of kindness from the Duke. Agnes realizes that she has seen the Duke's soft side. Agnes understands that she must not be a fool for pining for the Duke. A new day has dawned at the Duke's estate, where they teach balls and etiquette. Miss Westwick brings her children to her, who immediately introduce themselves. Agnes asks that she will take care of the children with great pleasure. Miss Westwick thanks the girl for everything, and she says goodbye to her. The children also say goodbye to their mother. They will have a good time. Timothy is not happy with what is happening around him. He is not happy with the new guests. He does not understand what the teacher has done this time. Agnes introduces Timothy to the other children and tells him that he will have group lessons. Agnes tells Timothy that these lessons are important. Timothy starts arguing with her. He doesn't plan to attend these lessons because he wasn't even asked. Agnes announces that she will not only be a teacher, but also a friend to Timothy. Agnes explains that he needs to learn to communicate with others. Timothy blushes, but understands Agnes's position. Agnes realizes that Timothy is just beginning to open up to her. She knows that Timothy doesn't know how to interact with his peers. The children suddenly stand up for Agnes, shielding her. Celine and Timothy argue over whose teacher Agnes is, the twins or Timothy. The children accuse Timothy of stealing their teacher from them. Agnes explains to the children that she hasn't talked to Timothy about group lessons. The children agree to let Agnes talk to Timothy. Agnes invites Timothy to approach the children and interact with them. Agnes believes that Timothy will play with other children and behave normally. Timothy tells her to get away from her. Celine jumps on Agnes and says that the teacher is only theirs. Celine smiles slyly and says that Timothy himself admitted it. Timothy and Celine start yelling at each other. They can't share the teacher. Timothy yells at Celine that she will strangle her, but the girl denies everything. Timothy and Celine argue about the teacher because he called her that. Timothy calls Celine a sly fox and tells her not to touch her. Celine claims that she is quite a cute fox, Timothy says that he is telling them to get out, but the children start arguing with him. The children protest that Agnes is some kind of thing. Celine bravely defends Agnes and says that she has her own will. Celine proudly declares to him that Agnes does not belong to anyone, that she is their favorite teacher. Celine insists that Agnes leave Timothy since he treats her like that. Agnes asks Celine to calm down, but she doesn't want to apologize. Agnes speaks sternly to Celine. She is cold as ice. Celine says reasonable things. You can't stay with a despot who considers you as property. Celine declares that she will not accept Timothy into their company. Timothy states that he does not need her consent. Celine says that if he hates the teacher, then let him remain alone. Timothy yells at Celine. He says he didn't hate Agnes. During the showdown, Timothy admits that he likes Agnes. Agnes is surprised by what is happening now and what she just heard. Agnes asks the boys to calm down, but they still continue to argue. Timothy destroys all of Celine's hopes. Agnes will not return to them. Celine looms over him, warning him of the consequences of his words. Celine blurts out that the day will come when the teacher will lose interest in Timothy. Timothy asks her to shut up. The situation worsens. Celine declares that she loves the teacher more than he loves her. Celine mentions that they are even doing better at studying than he thinks. Agnes realizes that she seems to be the odd one out here. Agnes doesn't even know which side to support in the conflict. Timothy walks past Agnes and he just remains silent. Agnes is surprised that a guilty Timothy called her a teacher. Timothy asks for group lessons. Timothy tells her not to act like she's any different. Agnes realizes that Timothy is in a bad mood. Timothy asks her to tell her who she likes more. The twins are him. Timothy points at them and calls them Sloth and Fox, but he himself is just a handsome guy. He says in a menacing voice that he will see which of them is more suitable for the role of a student. Agnes realizes that the lessons have gone too far. Celine and Timothy continue to argue about what is going on. It has gotten to the point where they insult each other about their height. Agnes asks them both to stop fighting because of her. Agnes is glad that they quickly became friends. Agnes asks to start the lesson, as the children are vying with each other to interrupt. Celine is excited about the music lessons that await them. Agnes invites Ben and Timothy to play the violin, and Celine to play the piano. The girl is happy with this idea. Timothy is upset that Celine is so dear to Agnes. Timothy and Celine start arguing over who can play the music better. Ben asks Agnes to stop the fights between Timothy and Celine. Agnes asks Ben what it is like when he gets anxious. Ben reports that he plays the violin poorly. Agnes promises that music will not become a battlefield, and she will teach Ben everything. Ben happily hugs Agnes. He is happy that he will learn to play. Timothy and Celine start yelling at Agnes, asking, "What is this? Does she really not love them?" Agnes wearily answers them that she will teach them everything. The children shout furiously that they have not become closer at all and that she is wrong. In the evening, the children run to their mother, who came to pick them up. Madame Westwick is glad that her children are so happy today. She asks Celine if she liked the lesson. Agnes realizes that she is a little worried about the future. Suddenly, Ethan comes up, and Celine is tense about what he is doing here. Ethan begins to be nice to Madame Westwick, even offering her tea. Ethan says that etiquette requires him to treat guests well. Agnes is horrified by Ethan's polite tone. Agnes doesn't understand why she feels so irritated. Miss Westwick asks Agnes to tell her about today's lesson. Agnes invites them to go ahead and see for themselves. Agnes walks through the garden, and she is pleased with what has happened. Miss Westwick asks Agnes about the royal ball, while she is glad she did not run into the Duke. Madame Westwick announces that his lordship will go to the ball and will not abandon Agnes. Agnes realizes that Ethan has also found a partner for the ball. Miss Westwick asks Agnes if she knows who the Crown Prince is. Agnes says that the Crown Prince needs something from the Duke. Miss Westwick thinks Agnes has a chance to start an affair. Agnes asks her to stop. She talks too much. Miss Westwick is upset. Did she say something wrong? She unexpectedly suggests that Agnes start a relationship with the Duke. Agnes is disgusted by the very idea of being intimate with the Duke. Madame says that nothing happened between them. Agnes says that she had nothing with the Duke. Agnes says goodbye to Ben and Celine. She believes that everything will be fine. Agnes also says goodbye to Miss Westwick and asks her to rest. Agnes says goodbye to them all and looks forward to the next lesson. Agnes realizes that she is very tired. Agnes doesn't understand why strangers are so interested in other people's lives. Agnes recalls that she hasn't been in a relationship for a very long time. Agnes is not interested in dating or any kind of meeting. Agnes decides to go and see Timothy, but the Duke approaches from behind. Agnes's arm is grabbed sharply, and she turns around. The one who grabbed her hand was Duke Ethan. Agnes asks him in surprise what she has done again. Ethan asks Agnes to stop avoiding him. Agnes tries to soften the situation. She didn't leave him after all. Agnes doesn't understand why Etna keeps holding her hand. Agnes asks him to let her go, but he tells her in an epic manner that Ethan is afraid that if he lets her go, she will run away. Agnes assures him that nothing will happen, but she is lying. Ethan calms down and says he's glad that's the case. Ethan coldly reminds him that no one has ever escaped from him, and he will not allow it. Ethan asks Agnes not to worry about it and not to leave him. Agnes says she doesn't want to have to report constantly. Agnes states that she will not report that she is leading group classes. Agnes says sullenly that unless he takes part in group classes with Timothy, Ethan asks her if he should go group riding with him. Agnes grabs his hand sharply. She begins to respect the Duke. Agnes is glad that the Duke begins to respect her and wants to change Timothy. Agnes asks Ethan when he wants to start. Tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? Agnes suggests changing the subject abruptly, as she has frightened Ethan. Agnes asks Ethan to come to support Timothy. Suddenly, Agnes realizes that the Duke is so handsome. Agnes is glad that Uncle Timothy will be able to do everything to make his nephew happy. Agnes believes that the main thing is the result. Everything else is unimportant. Ethan asks her in surprise if she really liked it. Agnes is surprised to learn that Ethan can smile. Ethan strokes the girl's head in a soft voice and tells her that she is irreplaceable. Then, Ethan coldly tells her that he will see her in class. Ethan and Agnes say goodbye, but their relationship has improved. The Duke's estate is illuminated by the sunset light. He is ready to welcome everyone. Carlo gives Ethan a letter that came from the estate. Ethan silently looks from the letter to the window. Ethan talks about what he will need for Timothy's ball. Carlo is shocked that Ethan calls the baby a puppy. Carlo thinks it's a smart idea to teach Timothy horse riding. Carlo won't immediately run to help the teacher. He has earned trust. Carlo says that for all his work, he barely got the little gentleman's approval. Ethan tells Carlo that he gave in to the teacher's persistence. Carlo listens attentively to Ethan about his relationship with his teacher. Carlo becomes interested in the story of what happened to Tristan and Ethan's jealousy. Ethan sharply asks Carlo what he wants. As he stares at him, Carlo reports that the teacher didn't just get the job by chance. Ethan is surprised that Carlo thinks he is paying special attention to the girl. Ethan explains that he finds her defense very endearing. Carlo says he saw Ethan miss her every day. Ethan believes that he cares for the girl as an employee, and Carlo does not see any problems. Carlo calls him a nice employer who has nothing to hide. Ethan asks him to leave and not show any ulterior motives. Carlo realizes that he has angered the Duke and leaves. Ethan is left alone and silent. He needs to be alone with himself. Ethan throws his head back and tries to relax. Ethan asks what he said that was funny. Ethan thinks about who he might have seen and why he misses Agnes. Ethan thinks her reactions to little things like that are pretty funny. He recalls how happy Agnes was that he was getting closer to Timothy. He extends his hand as if he is ready to feel something. Ethan clearly wants to catch the void in his hands. Ethan decides to sort things out and become a real Duke. Ethan orders 3 horses and harness to be prepared. Johann is delighted. Timothy will be taught horse riding. Ethan orders 1 set to be prepared for the child. Johann wants to tell Ethan something about what's going on. Ultimately, Johann reveals that Ethan took a wrong turn. Ethan heads to the dance hall where our heroes are dancing. Ethan is shocked that they are practicing dancing. Our heroine teaches Timothy to dance and shows him the moves. Timothy explains to her that it's all because she's taller than him. Ethan walks into the hall and becomes curious about what is going on. Agnes and Timothy are waiting for our hero to dance. Agnes invites him to observe the lesson. Ethan can't rule out the possibility that Agnes is very beautiful today. Agnes happily greets Ethan, who was shy. Agnes greets our hero again. She is glad of his arrival. Ethan is embarrassed that our heroine approached him. Ethan remembers being taught by his older sister Greta. Greta had always noticed that no one would want to live with a boor like Ethan. Ethan always firmly believed that if Greta found her mate, he would find one too. Greta says she would have left if she hadn't met Tristan. She starts arguing with Ethan about him following the rules too much. Greta predicts to him that when he falls in love, he will lose his head. Greta also tells him that he will need time, as he is too suspicious. Greta decides to let her brother in on her secrets. Greta tells her brother that he might stumble when he falls in love. Ethan asks Greta to leave. He doesn't want to hear anything. Greta tells him that it's in vain that he doesn't listen to her. When he falls in love, he'll understand everything. She says that the more he falls in love, the more he will understand. Ethan asks Greta to leave. He will never fall in love. Greta yells after Ethan that if he never falls in love, he will be an evil old man. Agnes asks Timothy to say hello, but he remains silent. Agnes tells Timothy that he needs to say hello. Timothy is silent. He doesn't want to say hello. He simply doesn't want to. Ethan responds with an equally long silence. Timothy sharply asks why he should greet his uncle. Agnes stops Timothy. She tells him that this is not right. Ethan is his relative. Timothy rudely reminds her that they should exchange greetings. Timothy says he is not obligated to greet someone who ignores him. Agnes is in shock. She doesn't know how to explain everything to the boy. Agnes looks at Ethan and asks him what he will do about the boy's attitude now. Agnes explains to the Duke that if he ignores the boy, he will continue to behave this way. Ethan argues with Agnes about Timothy's upbringing. Agnes turns to Timothy. She understands everything. She asks Timothy to be brave and greet his uncle. Timothy frowns at Ethan, gathering his courage. Timothy looks at Ethan darkly. He can't believe all this. Timothy forces out a pathetic hello, uncle. Ethan greets Timothy coldly, even colder than before. Now he becomes a common enemy of Timothy and Agnes. Ethan says he's glad Timothy is doing well, but he's not much of a dancer. Timothy shouts that today is his first time dancing. Agnes objects. You can't do that to Timothy. Ethan says he was good from the start, but Timothy doesn't believe him. Agnes slyly asks Ethan if he doesn't attend events because he's a bad dancer. Ethan tells her that he can show her how he dances if she doesn't believe him. He deftly picks up Agnes and begins to dance with her. Agnes was amazed by his dexterity. She did not expect such agility. Ethan tells Agnes that everything will be okay. Timothy pulls the fabric of the teacher's hem towards himself. Timothy shouts that this is all dangerous for Agnes. Agnes realizes that now she will lose her balance and fall. Eventually, Timothy tore off the hem of her dress, and Agnes rolled across the floor. Timothy and Ethan are scared that Agnes couldn't survive such a fall. Agnes is lying on the floor, silent and breathing heavily. Timothy and Ethan were both scared of what they had done. Agnes gives a thumbs up, and it's clear that everything is fine. Timothy calls the whole house for a doctor for the teacher. Agnes reassures concerned people that she is fine. Timothy reminds her that the floor was marble, that it was very painful. Agnes protests that she is fine, but Ethan doesn't want to listen to her. Timothy asks Agnes not to leave him while they are horse riding. Ethan decides to leave. He realizes that no one needs him. Agnes asks Ethan when he wants to teach the lesson. Ethan says he doesn't know. Agnes screams that this answer is unacceptable. Agnes tries to hold back the Duke, but he leaves upset. Timothy, surprised, asks Agnes if she knows. Agnes is upset about what happened because of her. Timothy says that even if she doesn't know, it might be for the best. Agnes doesn't understand what exactly. Now she wants to know. But later, Timothy changed. Her pranks no longer irritate Timothy. Timothy even plays the violin, which is very strange. Timothy was clearly up to something. Timothy plays the violin in a naval sailor suit. Agnes realizes that Timothy has grown up. She notes that his face is calm and mature, like his uncle Ethan's. But Timothy plays in such a way that your ears will simply burst. Agnes tries to diffuse the already tense situation. Agnes says that they are great, and that they need to practice music more. Agnes wants to listen to their music separately. Agnes asks the children in surprise if they would mind if Selena spoke first. Timothy says that they are children. Selena is outraged by Timothy's comments that they will be like children listening to her music. Timothy looks at her coldly and says nothing. Selena and Ben want to be the first to play Agnes. Agnes decides to take a short break to go get some sheet music. Celine approaches Timothy, who is reading quietly. Celine looks at Timothy and realizes that something is wrong. She abruptly snatches the book from Timothy and asks him about his strange behavior. Celine and Ben are horrified by Timothy's behavior. Timothy calls adults fools who need to learn for themselves. Timothy says that they need to be careful of his uncle, but he doesn't name the second adult. Tristan is glad that the music has finally ended. Ethan explains to Tristan that it's not music, it's noise. Tristan cheerfully asks Ethan how the teacher is doing. Ethan says everything is fine since she's still walking. Tristan sees that Ethan has had a fight with Agnes. Tristan asks Ethan if he was rejected when he hit on Agnes. Ethan is horrified. He looks at Tristan like he's an animal. Tristan reminds him that he needs to get along with Greta's child, and the teacher is of no use. Ethan admits that he was going to teach Timothy a writing lesson. Tristan teases him. Did Ethan really decide to get closer to the boy when he knows that he is Reynolds' son? Ethan is once again the domineering duke who forbids the teacher to take a single step and has no intention of getting close to Timothy. Tristan suggests that Ethan might get a report on how Timothy is working. Tristan notices that Ethan's scowl has deepened, and he is gloomier than usual. Ethan says he has a proposal to make to Tristan. Ethan asks Tristan not to come if his conversations are pointless. Tristan says that as an employer, he tries to protect his people. Tristan says that he is responsible for those who live here, as the crown prince. Tristan tells Ethan that he came to Agnes, not Ethan, in the first place. Ethan is jealous, saying he can't throw such a scumbag out the door. Tristan greets Agnes. He is happy to see her, as usual. Agnes asks Tristan in surprise what he is doing here. Tristan invites her to have dinner together, and she will understand everything. He is very upset to learn that Agnes will not have dinner with him. Tristan conspiratorially says that everything is just as he thought. Agnes tells Tristan that it's halfway through class. The children watch her and are angry. They are terrified of Tristan. Tristan offers to walk Agnes to her office. Agnes tells Tristan that he can do whatever he wants. Tristan wants to send her shoes and a dress as a refusal of their date. Agnes says she will wear them carefully. Tristan tells her that her refusal is quite rude. Agnes asks Tristan in surprise if there is really someone behind her. Tristan says that he thought there were 3 of them, and someone else had sneaked in. Agnes looks over Tristan's shoulder in surprise. Timothy is sneaking behind them in his sailor suit, which is ridiculous. Ethan follows the children, looking even gloomier. Tristan asks Agnes if Timothy has agreed to a riding lesson. He tells Agnes that Greta fell off her horse, which is surprising that Timothy doesn't know. Agnes says that she didn't know about it at all. Tristan tells her that he didn't want her to be sad. Agnes says that everything is fine. You should have said so earlier. Tristan reports that he is glad that the Battenberg house is lucky to have a teacher. Agnes didn't expect to receive this from the crown prince. Tristan tells her that he wants Greta's heir to be alive and well. Tristan tells her that Ethan is against his meeting with Timothy. Agnes can't believe she's talking to Tristan, the prince. Agnes can't believe she's crossed paths with the crown prince. Tristan tells her that he can't take up her time anymore. The kids and Ethan eavesdrop on Tristan. They are keeping an eye on Agnes. Agnes asks the children to train hard. Agnes doesn't understand what happened to the children. They are usually so obedient. But here, the children came to be taken home, and Celine turns to Agnes. Celine asks Agnes to talk to her, and she is worried. Celine tells Agnes that what she is about to tell is a secret. Agnes asks the driver to wait a bit, and decides to talk to the children. The children go somewhere, and Agnes is surprised at how close the children have become. Agnes is glad that the children have stopped arguing and have become closer. Suddenly, she feels someone's gaze. Ethan's cold and lonely figure looks out at her from the window. Ethan stands silently, cold and reserved, dissatisfied with something. Agnes looks at Ethan, very surprised. Agnes turns away from Ethan abruptly to leave. Agnes thinks Ethan is just a real jerk for not even warning her about everything. Timothy whispers something to Celine and Ben, and they agree with him. Celine says that no one will get their teacher, not even Ethan. Timothy says that their teacher will go to the ball with Tristan, who is a slacker. Ben doesn't know what to say. He believes that the teacher is only theirs. Celine asks Timothy to protect the teacher while they are not around. Timothy vows to protect the teacher. Celine is even ready to forget about the feuds, since Tristan is climbing on Agnes. They form an alliance so that no one else will bother Agnes. The children decide to form an alliance to save Agnes from marriage. At this time, Agnes looks at Ethan, 2 worlds colliding. Agnes looks at Ethan, her eyes looking very scared. Ethan looks coldly at the heroine. He is ready to grind her into dust. But then Agnes abruptly leaves, leaving Ethan alone. Agnes gives Ethan a look full of hatred. Ethan catches her eye and is very surprised. What did he do? The knight tries to report his successes to him, but he doesn't listen. Tristan noticed that Ethan had no appetite. He was simply confused. Dahlia also talks to Ethan, but he only remains silent and wonders what that look was. Ethan doesn't agree with what Dahlia is offering him, but he hesitantly agrees to become Dahlia's partner at the ball. But then he hears what he's done from Dahlia. Ethan apologizes and asks Dahlia to forgive him. Tristan approaches him and says that he is happy for him and Dahlia. Tristan asks Ethan why he is so absent-minded. Tristan asks what's going on and tells him something. Tristan says that Ethan looks stupid, that it's all because of the teacher. Ethan sullenly says that he will go. He doesn't feel well. Carlo asks Ethan where he can take his dinner. Carlo tells him that it's all because of his studies. Ethan asks what his classes have to do with it. He is shocked that Carlo only consults with Agnes. Ethan is shocked to learn that Agnes was sent a gift. Everything was prepared for Agnes. A dress, shoes, accessories. Ethan is shocked. He also prepared a dress for the girl. Ethan asks to send their gifts home. Ethan thinks about the teacher all day, and he is irritated. Carlo follows Ethan. He is worried about his master. Ethan stops in front of Agnes in a green dress. Agnes informs Ethan that Timothy wants to play with the Westwick siblings. Ethan wants to talk to Agnes. He needs to discuss something with her. Carlo says that he will leave and leaves them alone. Ethan asks Agnes if she's ready to leave too. Ethan sharply asks the girl if she is angry. Agnes claims she's not angry, but everything she sees suggests otherwise. Ethan asks her sharply what is going on. He says that she is angry with him. Agnes sharply asks him what happened to Greta and why he didn't say anything. Ethan asks her in surprise if this is all because of this. Agnes says what she should have known. Ethan says he shouldn't have worried about it. Ethan realizes that the girl's behavior doesn't irritate him. Ethan is silent, remembering the words of those who told him about love. He asks Agnes to take something. She is surprised. He hands her the dress she is to wear to the ball. The girl says that he should have been sent not long ago. Unexpectedly, the next day, Timothy greets her. Agnes can't get enough of the courteous Timothy. Ben and Celine suspect something is wrong here. Celine and Ben decide to play with Timothy and take him outside. Ben talks about how scared he is about moving to a new place. Ben talks about how Timothy reminds Agnes of him when he holds someone's hand. Ben talks about how Agnes is like an older sister to him. Celine screams that they have very little time and asks them to go. Ben walks up to his sister and runs after her down the narrow stairs. Celine scolds Ben for being so slow. Timothy looks at Ben and Celine in surprise. Timothy asks Celine and Ben honestly how they feel about the teacher. Timothy notices that she is very dear to him, and she is not their teacher. Timothy says that there are still a lot of people who love them. Celine and Ben exchange glances, surprised by his reaction. Celine and Ben talk about how they treat her the best. Timothy asks if they are the only ones who behave this way with him. Celine says that Timothy understands them and gives them cute nicknames. Timothy realizes that Agnes has a lot to offer him. Celine says that she even shares a teacher with him, a naughty and talentless person. Celine reminds Timothy that if Agnes gets married, then their plans are over. Celine says that there are two types of solutions to the situation. The first way is to prevent her from going to the ball. The second is to go with her. Timothy thinks that Celine just wants to go to the ball, but that's not true. Ben reminds her that she asked her mother to let her go. Celine reminds them that they need to take matters into their own hands, otherwise they will lose their teacher. Timothy asks if they can hide in the carriage. He asks if something can work. Agnes approaches them and says that they are having a very interesting conversation. In the end, the children were called onto the carpet, and they were ready to talk about their pranks. Agnes asks menacingly if Celine wants to say something. Celine explains to her that she doesn't want her to get married. Celine says that she will not allow the teacher to go to the ball and marry a scoundrel. Agnes thinks about what the children are saying. Agnes agrees to take the children with her to the ball. Agnes asks them to behave decently there. The maid tells Agnes that she looks amazing. Agnes thanks the servants for making her look beautiful. The maid tells her that Ethan ordered her to be made beautiful, and he is worried about her. The maid tells her that he has changed a lot. She tells her that the time has come for decorations, and she will conquer the Duke. Agnes is surprised that this is all happening, but Agnes feels sick when she sees all this. A bunch of servants offered her various decorations, and Agnes felt sick. Finally, a modest piece of jewelry is placed around Agnes's neck. Agnes is told that it is time for her to meet the Duke. Agnes runs to Carlo. She is ready to go out. Carlo calmly opens the door for her and looks at her. Carlo sharply asks if everything is okay, and if her dress is not bothering her. She agrees with Carlo. Agnes says that the earrings and necklace are simply heavy. Agnes is shocked that all of these are gifts from his lordship. Agnes was just about to say something to the Duke. Agnes already wants to go home even before she leaves. The Duke comes up to her and he's just cute. Agnes asks him in surprise what this all means. The Duke informs her that he will take her to the ball. Agnes notes that this is all very kind of her. Agnes's hand falls softly into Ethan's. Agnes and Ethan are going to the ball. They are walking down the stairs. Agnes notes that she feels uncomfortable wearing Ethan's jewelry. Ethan says that Agnes feels uncomfortable. Agnes learns that she can keep the jewelry for herself. Agnes reports that she received help choosing an outfit. Ethan is simply charming next to Agnes. Agnes thinks that everything is happening too strange. Ethan takes Agnes's hand and gently whispers to her that she is beautiful. Agnes looks at him in surprise. She can't believe what she's hearing. Ethan tells her that she is so beautiful that it infuriates her. Agnes wondered if the Duke's heart had begun